Welcome to our show. My name is Zakiyyah G.E. Capehart, and I am your host today. We have with us today Karla Brundage. Karla Brundage, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Karla is the founder of West Oakland to West Africa Poetry Exchange. She's also a high school English teacher and a member of the board of Before Columbus Foundation. She has facilitated cross-cultural exchanges between Oakland and West African poets. And she is the editor of 3 anthologies: Our Spirits Carry Our Voices, Sisters Across Oceans, and Black Rootedness. 54 poets from Africa to America. Her third book, BLOODLIES, Race Traitor, was published in 2024. I want to mention here that Karla is the author of 3 books, and this is the book that she will focus on today. So Karla, could you tell us a little bit about your third book?
Oh, sure. Well, BLOODLIES, Race Traitor, and this is it, is my third book, and I've been working on it for a long time, and it focuses a lot on family, ancestors, and the idea of archaic words that continue to live in modern day society. One of those words being the word mulatto. And so I talk a lot about this word in its archaic form and the word in the contemporary world.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for that, Karla. And I wanted to mention here that Karla is also the director and producer of a play, which is an experimental type of play, I believe, entitled Lake Walking, Revolutionary Talking. So I'd like for you to tell us about this experimental play, Karla.
Oh, great. Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, Lake Walking, Revolutionary Talking is sort of the culmination of this work in the book called Black Rootedness, 54 Poets from Africa to America. And this book was actually created mostly during the pandemic as part of West Oakland to West Africa is doing poetry exchanges. And our poetry exchanges include a curriculum in which there are poets in America who are then in the Bay Area, Oakland specifically, who are then paired with poets in Ghana. Mm-hmm. And in 54 poets from Africa to America, actually it was our third exchange. And that book has poets from Nigeria and Kenya as well. So I guess what happened was, after that book came out, I felt it was such a beautiful exchange. I wanted to bring it out, kind of off of the page and into the community. And I kept thinking, like, how is this gonna happen? How is this gonna happen? And while we've done some readings, we've even done hybrid readings in which we had poets here in Oakland, as well as poets abroad in Africa, in the motherland, Zooming in. We had never done something kind of interactive and experimental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a beautiful exchange. I remember being a part of it. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking that this is so unique. And it's like a precedence of an exchange that's happening across the waters, from America to Africa. And I was very fortunate to be a part of it. And so I thank you, Karla, for including me as part of that anthology.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it was, our first anthology, which you were also a part of, mm-hmm. Our Spirits Carry Our Voices, was in exchange with poets in Ghana. And that was the one that was our origin story when I had just come back from living abroad. I had been living in Côte d'Ivoire, which adjoins Ghana. I had been working there for 3 years, and I had met poets in Ghana, specifically a poet named Sir Black. And it was Sir Black who kind of introduced me to the Ghanaian poetry scene, which is super hip, by the way. They have poetry slams, they have poetry readings. People attend very heavily because of the oral culture. And what was really beautiful was Sir Black had said to me, when I met him, he was working with teenagers, and he was introducing this idea of the slam to Ghana. And I said to him, oh, this would be so great for my students, especially in America, because I'm trying to teach my students in Oakland how our Black culture is connected to the West African griot culture. I said, you know, there's such a big connection in rap and hip hop. We're all like this intercontinental exchange of our history. And he said to me, and I'll never forget this, he said, I'm trying to use rap to teach young Ghanaian youth about how hip hop is actually part of the griot culture. I'm trying to teach youth in Ghana our own history. And I was like, oh my gosh, we are like two peas in a pod. So when
Amazing, yeah.
And that was when we came up with the idea to do an exchange. Originally, we thought we'd do it with teenagers, but as you know, in the end, I wound up doing it with people of all ages.
Yeah, which is so beautiful, because that generation gap, which we have, it brings us all closer together, because there's so much that the youth have that can teach the elders, and the elders, of course, with so much experience, can teach the youth.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's very, very important. I'm so glad that you were able to do that. There's one thing that really surprised me. I found that in Africa, in Ghana at least, there's so many poets that are male, and not a lot of female poets. And it's the opposite here. You know, there's so many female poets and not a lot of male poets. So I'm just wondering if you had toyed with that, thinking about that, and do you know why that is, possibly?
I wouldn't say I have the answer, but I would say it was certainly noticeable in our exchange. In our exchange, most of the participants on the Oakland side were women, and women identified, and then most of the poets on the Ghana side were male identified. But over the past 8 years, as we've been doing this, it just came up to honestly, if there's anything to raise up, it would be the attention of the organizers, myself and Sir Black. Sir Black has worked really hard to raise more female or woman-identified voices in Ghana. And I've also done a lot of work in my side on the exchange to kind of look at not so much balance like a tit for tat, but just kind of being inclusive of all genders and all people.
Yeah, I've noticed that, from you. Yeah, thank you for explaining your point of view of that. Yeah. So I was wondering here if you would talk a little bit about the style that we wrote in, and about the poet partners and all of that, and how you got started with the idea of the exchange of poetry from Oakland to Ghana.
Sure, yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I was teaching in actually Abidjan at International Community School of Abidjan, but we went on a conference to Ghana. And after the whole meeting of the minds with Sir Black, and I returned to the United States 3 years later because my dad was very ill. There was a short period where I thought I would stay there forever, but I came home and I wanted to do an exchange. It never left me. This idea was just kind of burning, and I had written a grant application to Mills College, and I was accepted on this community engagement fellowship. And that community engagement fellowship became my project while I was getting my master's in fine arts there. And it was really kind of interesting because for a little bit of time, even though they gave me the fellowship, my mentors, who were very supportive, they said to me, well, Karla, if you can't really pull this exchange off, we understand. Mm-hmm. Originally, I had hoped for the exchange to be in person, like a physical exchange. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because their way of telling me it was okay not to do it, like, gave me this idea of like, no, I'm gonna do it, I have to figure out how. Mm-hmm. And that was where the idea of this curriculum of Renshi poetry. So the form we use, Renshi poetry, is a Japanese form in which two poets are paired up for a significant amount of time, because one of the main goals of this exchange is for these partnerships to be authentic and real. And I found that poetry has become kind of like an equalizer, mm-hmm. because if you're paired with a poet for a partner for a while, then you develop a relationship.
It's true. It's mm-hmm. very true, because my poet partner and I have developed a relationship, and it's very beautiful. He's a young man of probably about 26 now. I think he was about 23 or so back then. But he's quite knowledgeable. He's a really good poet, and he's always looking for, for help and how he can be better. And so that's very endearing, because sometimes the youth think they have all the answers, and that elders don't really know what they're going through or what they want to do, or, how can you be impactful in my life? But he's very respectful, and so that's been, really wonderful to actually share more than just poetry with him. That sometimes we Zoom and we're able to talk about other things, and so yeah. That's very true, that to have a relationship other than the poetry is quite impactful.
Yeah. I mean, I come to see this exchange as sort of like, almost like an equalizer, mm-hmm. because there'll be a theme. And so the most famously, and also in our show, your partner Joey and you, the theme was disaster. Mm-hmm. And Renshi poetry is where you take the last line of your partner's poem and you start your poem in response to it. It's a challenge. Here's my poem on disaster. What is your poem on disaster? And now we have fires in Oakland and floods in Ghana.
Exactly.
And those two poems really kind of can be used to illustrate how the lake walking, revolutionary talking, the experimental theater piece came to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So I know that there has been one show already, mm-hmm. In May.
Right.
And there are going to be two other shows coming up in August. And so I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit more about the show, how you were able to get the Oakland poets and the African poets together in a show here in America.
Sure. So many beautiful things had to happen. Firstly, Andrew Wood of the San Francisco International Arts Festival invited me to participate, and we were lucky enough, I wrote a grant to the Kenneth Rainin Foundation, which helped a lot, mm-hmm. and we were able to fulfill this dream. So the idea between Lake Walking, Revolutionary Talking is a journey back to the motherland. But by this time, we've done 4 journeys. We've partnered with Nigeria, we've partnered with Kenya, we've partnered with Ghana twice. And so it was kind of like, from all 3 books, I put out a call to all the poets who had participated. And all the poets who responded, as long as their partner was available, we paired them up, and I wove the poetry together in this idea of what happens, what is the meaning of Sankofa? Sankofa, translated, is this idea of going back to your past to retrieve what was lost, but people often forget about to move forward. And so I really wanted to focus on the moving forward. So the way the theater piece works is we're walking around the lake. And the lake is symbolic to Oakland because it's the center of our city, of our beloved city. And Oakland, known for all of our revolutionary thinking and being a leadership in the Black community, I thought if we're walking around the lake, then there's kind of like the centrifugal force that will like lift us up and spiritually take us back. And then I wanted to explore this idea of back. What does it mean to go back? And when you get back, there are people there. You can't really go back. So who's there? Well, our poet partners. And this dialogue is what is hoping to bring us forward in like a Pan-African vision. Like, who are we now together as a community? What's important to us and where are we going?
Such a beautiful idea. Gee, yeah, I was just thinking that that's revolutionary in itself. And so to be able to have that acted out between the poets from Oakland and Ghana, and talk about the streaming part, because that's, you know, how we connected and how we were able to really get the play done between all the poets.
Yeah, I mean, really it is about magic. So I just have to say, when I lived in Zimbabwe in 2001, when the internet felt new, one of my very good teacher friends there said, oh, here in Kwekwe, we call the internet white man's magic. Okay. And I remember thinking about that my whole life. That phrase has never left. But how do we bring the voices right into the room? And so with great tech support, we zoomed in poets from Kenya, Nigeria, and Ghana. So the way the play is set up is as we walk around the lake, there's a screen, and each poet interacts with their poet partner, picking up on each person's last line. And it was through that technology of Zoom to bring the voices live and in real time into the room.
It was absolutely magic, yeah. And the house was packed.
It was.
Oh my God, yeah, the audience just loved it. I mean, I'm still getting compliments on, oh, that was such a wonderful experience. You're so glad that I was able to be there. And yeah, so it was really wonderful for the audience and wonderful for us, for those of us too that were part of the play. Yeah, it was, so I don't know about all the other cast members, but I imagine that they're excited about what's coming forth in August. We have 2 more performances.
Yeah, and actually I need to read off the name of all the name of the cast from my phone because I don't want to forget anyone.
Okay.
So it's coming August 9th and 10th at BAM House, which is the Black Arts Movement House, founded by Ayodele Nzinga, our own inaugural poet laureate of Oakland.
That's right.
And there'll be one matinee so August 9th, the show will be at 7 p.m. And on the 10th, we'll have a matinee and a 7 p.m. show. And in it, we had Ayodele Nzinga, David Odiasi, Sir Black from Ghana, Ramesses Setek, Kevin Dublin, Wanda Sabir, Gemini from Nigeria, Amos White from Alameda, Raven, who also goes by the name Godfrey Elvis Odianose, of course, our own Zakiyyah G.E. Capehart, Joey Corgren, and Ife Owungalu, and as well as myself. Yeah. And in the first production, we also had Dwayna Fulwiley. So that's our star-studded cast.
It's such a beautiful cast. I mean, we all got along famously. And so I look forward to, getting back with the cast again for the next performances in August. So that's going to be wonderful. So I'm sure that we're going to pack the house again.
Oh yeah, I hope so. And this time I'm looking to bring in some drummers, and that's in the progress. It's going to be a beautiful show.
Okay. Will there be a dancer or dancers again?
We're
Also?
hoping so.
Okay. That's going to be very beautiful. That's, yeah, feels good. Yeah, so I wonder if you wanted to talk a little bit about maybe because you have two other books of your, of your own writing, and I wonder if you wanted to just mention them briefly.
Oh, I have my first book, Swallowing Watermelons.
I love that title.
People always ask about the title, and that one was actually inspired by Amy Tan.
Okay.
I wrote that book when I was during the time of being pregnant and becoming a mother, and then also being a single mother at that time. And so there's a scene in Joy Luck Club where that watermelon is cut in half, and I just never forgot that scene. But the watermelon being symbolic of the womb, but it's not lost on me that watermelons are, a Southern favorite, and my family is from the South, Alabama. And also there's a poem in there called Swallowing Whole Watermelons of Sorrow, and so it's kind of about processing some of the things that were happening for me in my life at that time.
Well, that's so beautiful. I didn't know all of that. Yeah, those things resonate with me also. Yeah. So Joy Luck Club, I love that film. That's a great film.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that. Yeah, and then your second book.
My second book was called Mulatta, Not So Tragic. So I got into this whole concept of, having a mixed race ancestry myself. My father is white, my mother is black. I've been interrogating this question of what that means, especially in American history. So that book is co-authored with another friend of mine named Allison Francis, with whom I have exchanged Renchi poetry for 15 years.
Wow.
So that is another book of Renchi poetry. And the book started off not about that at all. It started off with Allison and I being on the beach in Hawaii one day, and she said, hey, why don't you write a poem to me and I'll write one back. And she had heard of the form, Renchi. And we said, okay. So we did it for over 10 years. In that time, I was in love and she was brokenhearted.
Oh.
And then she got married and I broke up. And then I moved to Africa and she moved to Hawaii. It was like this weird crossing. So that whole book, the title of that is about just the not so tragic. We were trying to break out that not so tragic. It's mostly about women's lives. Yeah.
Very beautiful. Yeah, women have such multifaceted lives, and and so much recognition should always go to women for so much. Of course, we birth all the babies, but so much more. Yes, and that's absolutely. So I wonder if there's anything that you would like to share that I perhaps didn't ask about.
I think what I wanted to share that we were talking about earlier is that that one of the things that was so beautiful about West Oakland to West Africa was that after the exchange finally started to happen at Mills, I still, for the first year, didn't know what it was going to be. The group, my first group that joined, I call it my group, the first group that joined, ranged in all ages, from students at Mills all the way to elders in the Oakland community. And we met sometimes at Mills and sometimes at the Huey Newton Library, which is the origin of our name. And I just remember not thinking we were going to go to Ghana. And then one day Makita said, let's go to Ghana.
I remember that. That was, we were all like doubting, can we? Can we really do this?
Yeah.
But we were all excited about, yeah, you know, we can do this.
Yeah.
And then all the fundraisers that we had, you know, to be able to help ourselves, you know, fulfill that dream.
Right.
And what a beautiful dream. Yeah.
And then when we got there, I think because we were hosted by our poet partners, we really became part of an existing community, the community of poets that we were fully immersed in. And that was life-changing for me. And then something a lot of people don't know is it wasn't until the very next year that the year of return was declared. And I remember thinking like, oh shucks, I missed it. But then I thought, well, no, we were kind of on the forefront. We were kind of on the forefront.
How about that? That's a beautiful way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wonder, when you were living in Africa, you had your daughter with you, and I just wonder, have you seen impactfulness from her being with you, from her having the experience that most of us don't have at such a young age of being, you know, on the continent?
I definitely feel strongly, firstly, when I lived in Cote d'Ivoire, Asha was already fully grown, but she did live with me for a year in Zimbabwe when she was 7. And that experience showed her so much about the world that she never would have known, you know, in a place where, well, everyone was Black. Everybody, especially where we were. We were in a rural area. We didn't see non-Black people almost at all. And that was really beautiful for her. We were in an incredibly rich cultural place, but we were also in a very poverty-stricken place. So one of the things that she learned about was American privilege. And that influences her even today, which is why I think she's chosen not to travel abroad and to work at home as an activist.
I see. Well, that's so beautiful. If only all our children could have an experience like that. Yeah, I definitely advocate for, you know, everyone being able to travel because it is such an education. Well, Karla Brundage, I want to thank you for being with us today. And yeah, just wanted to just briefly say, you know, what's next, if you can say that in like 30 seconds or less.
Oh, what's next? We really hope to see you at BAM House on August 9th and 10th for Lake Walking Revolutionary Talking. I think it's going to be super great.
I know it's going to be. Thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.